Hi everybody, I'm Leah of seejanedrill. Welcome. Now today's video, I'm doing something that really goes along with the season. Here's the thing. This is a time of year, in this country at least, where flea markets and garage sales and yard sales are a big deal. And it really is one of those great times to go out and find really good tools for a little bit of money. And I want to show you some of the secrets I use to score big at yard sales and walk away with just fantastic tools for pennies on the dollar. So here are a couple saws that I scored recently at one of my local garage sales, okay? Now, you're probably looking at it and you're saying, Leah, are you kidding me? Those are old saws. Well, that's it exactly. If you see tools that are old, look closer, because chances are you got a real diamond there, and the rust or dirt or whatever is hiding a diamond in the rough. Now, what we're looking at here are two saws that I've already begun the restoration process. That's why I've taken the blades off the handles and I've removed the hardware. But what I want to tell you is this. These two saws are very sought after. They're called Distons, and I like to collect Distons because they're quality saws. Now, what are the dead giveaways? Well, let's first take a look at this saw here. The handle itself doesn't look really machined. It looks, you have softer edges. The other thing is, let's look at the hardware. See this nut here? They call that a split nut, and a split nut really dates the saw. It tells me that this saw is about 1870. I want you to notice the medallion in the center. That's what that's called, a medallion. Now, I've cleaned it up a little bit so I could really read it. But the medallion says H. Diston and Sons, and that is the medallion of a very good saw. So that's one of the things that you need to be looking for. There's a catalog online for the medallions. Now, this is the medallion on the other saw, and it's also a Diston too, but it's not as old. We're looking at maybe 1940. The other things to look at, believe it or not, are the handles. The handles are cataloged. These designs tell you how old the saw is. Where the hardware is set in the handle also is a dead giveaway. So the last thing I look for when I'm looking at saws is I'm going to look at the teeth. I'm going to make certain that the teeth are in good shape, okay, that there aren't teeth missing. And both saws, my teeth are in excellent condition. They're in good condition. There aren't any missing teeth or really bad damaged teeth. So what this tells me is this saw is going to sharpen well. I will sharpen this saw later and it will cut through wood like butter. So what did I pay for the saws, right? I paid $2 for each saw. So the two saws together, they're probably worth about $150 to $200. Now, tip number one was, if it's old, look closer. Tip number two is this. If you're not certain about a name brand and you've got a cell phone, look it up on your phone. I wasn't really familiar with Sandvik, but I did know that it was a Swedish tool, and Swedish measuring tools tend to be very sought after. So I looked up Sandvik and I found out that the square that they were selling at $1 at a garage sale was worth $40 online. So I grabbed it right away. Okay, so our next tip is know your needs. And there are just some things you can never have too many of. In my case, I build a lot of furniture and I need a lot of clamps and different kinds of clamps. Now, here's the thing. There are certain names that I look for. Bessie, that's a good name. Pony, that's a good name. In fact, this is a pony clamp here. Now, these red clamps, they're kind of middle-of-the-road clamps. They're B&C clamps. But really, when it comes right down to it, I purchased all the clamps that you see here for $10. The pony clamp alone is worth $20, okay? So know your needs, but also know that you can find a great deal at a garage sale even on something like clamps. Tip number 4 is this. Don't be afraid to bargain. Now, I use sandpaper all the time, and sandpaper is really expensive. Now, when I went to the yard sale, the fella said, why don't you just grab, a handful of sandpaper for $1? And I said to the man, well, I'll tell you what, I use a lot of sandpaper. Why don't I give you $10 for the box? And he said, oh, okay, sounds good. And so I got all the sandpaper here, okay, for $10. The belts alone are $10. So the trick is just make an offer, because you never know until you do. People have yard sales and garage sales because they want to get rid of the stuff. They don't want to hang on to it. And you would be surprised how often you can walk away with a great score for just a little bit of money. So tip number 5 is this, and it has to do with this sander right here. It's a 4-inch commercial belt sander, and it's made by Craftsman. Now, it is a vintage sander, but I got to tell you, I started this thing up, and you got to hold on for dear life because it's a real beast. It's a great tool. But here is the tip, and that is this. Talk to the people that are having the yard sale or garage sale. Develop some kind of connection with them, because you never know where something may lead. There were 2 sanders. There was a finishing sander, which I was interested in, but I turned my head and guess what? It was gone. And then there was this one. I wasn't really looking for a belt sander, but I couldn't help but notice that it was a nice sander. So I asked the owner, so what do you want for this sander? And she said, well, the other sander was $7. Is this sander, she asked, is it worth more? And I said, well, it's a belt sander, so yeah, it is worth more. She said, in that case, $10. So I got a great belt sander for $10. And this particular belt sander, it's commercial, found it on eBay a couple times. It's around $80. So my advice is be friendly, because you never know what might happen. Now, my next tip is to bring a magnifying glass, because I got to tell you, a magnifying glass has helped me out many, many times. It really allows you to read trademarks. And in the case of the medallion you see here, it was covered with tarnish. You could barely read anything with the naked eye, but because I had a magnifying glass, I knew I had a real treasure in my hands. Now, my last tip is an oldie, but it's a goodie, and that is the early bird catches the worm. You gotta get to these kinds of sales on time or even a little early, because tools, they just go right away, especially good tools. Now, if you've got a way that you go about yard sales or garage sales to make certain that you score big, share in the comments below. Let me know and let others know what you do, or what are some of the name brands you look for. This is Leah saying you can do this. See you next time.